Hi, I'm Matthew Metchke, Director of Ohio Western Reserve National Cemetery. If you are a loved one that's a veteran or has a family member or friend that is, you have a benefit right in your backyard at Ohio Western Reserve National Cemetery. Please reach out to us if you're interested in obtaining any benefit information. Our phone number is 330-335-3069, and our website address will be located here in this announcement. Thank you.
Welcome to this month's Salute to Service. So with me today I have Mr. Jack Forster, United States Marine Corps veteran. How you doing, Jack?
Very good,
Hey,
thank you.
Good to have you on board. Hey, you've been on the show before, so this is kind of like an old rehashing of you and everything else. So,
Well, thank you for having me.
we're great to have you back. Now, Vietnam veteran, United States Marine Corps. Tell me a little bit about your service.
Well, I went into the service June of 1967, right out of high school. Went through boot camp, infantry training, guerrilla warfare, and then in November of 67 went over to Vietnam and was in Vietnam 67, 68. I was there during the Tet Offensive and up in Khe Sanh and in a number of areas, and was wounded May 17th, 1968, and spent a couple weeks on the hospital ship Repose. Went on to Guam for a couple months and then came back to stateside. I enjoyed my time in the Marine Corps, but then thought, well, it was time when it was time to get out,
Right.
decided to go into the civilian life and start a new career. Well, it's interesting because your motivation coming out of the Marine Corps was significantly higher than it was
Coming out of high school, right?
coming out of high school. And so going on and working 10 years to get my college degree, going part-time and having a successful career, I credit the Marine Corps and the military service as helping me
Right.
get on that path.
Now, you were drafted, right?
No,
you
I
enlisted?
volunteered.
Volunteered, enlisted. What's going through your head when you're standing in that line going, hey, I know I'm going to war?
Well, at that age, you think you're invincible. You think, there were, we grew up at the end of, Korea, the bomb and everything else that was going on. We did exercises where you'd go under your desk, it was a whole different time. And so, serving your country was, a very high priority for me.
Right.
And so when it was time for me to serve, I was front and center.
Now, you came back home and you retired from your job and everything, and I know you're very involved with the VFW here in Medina and elsewhere and everywhere else. So tell me a little bit about what you do for that.
Well, I enjoy working with veterans and trying to help. Through the VFW, I've been the past commander there from 2010 to 2013, and it was a great honor and a privilege. And anything we can do to help veterans or to help veterans' families is always front and center for us and for all our members at any of the units I belong to. I belong to DAV and Purple Heart and VVA and the American Legion. And they all support our veterans. So that's something that I really look forward to doing. I've done a number of fundraisers to help specific veterans and to help things like the Greater Cleveland Fisher House.
So, and that brings us to what we really got you on the show for. We want to talk about next month. We got an event coming up at the IX Center. And I know there's the whole 50th commemoration of the Vietnam War is going on right now and everything in Medina County. We picked 2016 to do that. But let's talk a little bit about what you got going on, because you've been doing this for a few years now at the IX Center, and this year is a little bit special for Vietnam veterans. So go ahead.
Well, the IX Center has been fantastic to work with, and very, very supportive of our veterans. And with the 50th commemoration of the Vietnam War, it was an opportunity to not only show the history of the Vietnam War, especially to our young and those that really don't understand what happened, but also to honor those veterans that served in the Vietnam War, or family members that lost people in the Vietnam War, or just friends and neighbors that went to the Vietnam War. It had such an impact on that generation. Well, the layout and what we've done, and I've had help from hundreds of people, is to depict from the early days of Vietnam, which included Eisenhower and Kennedy, and all the way until the initiation of the Vietnam War through to the fall of Saigon. So as you walk through these aisles, there will be these large blow-up pictures that'll depict multiple scenes of different battles, different conflicts, things that the normal serviceman does when they're in combat. Our shit burners. I mean, we got pictures of guys, you know, when, well, you didn't have drainage systems or anything, so
Yeah, burn it in the barrel.
you
So,
burn
yeah.
it in the barrel, you know, and so there's a lot of pictures that show the real life of combat soldiers.
So now you've been doing this with the IX Center, because obviously the money you guys raise out there is for going to the Fisher House, right? Down
Correct.
in Cleveland. So this is your third year out there?
It's actually the first year we hosted the U.S. Army. The second year was the Ohio National Guard. The third year was the United States Marine Corps. And this coming year, March 18, 19, and 20, will be the commemoration of the Vietnam veterans.
And I got to tell you, it was really cool, because I know I was out there the second year, and we had our tables and displays and stuff set up. And then last year, you took it to a whole new level, where you had the scaffolding and you had the artists up there painting on the scaffolding, which was really cool. And then this year, obviously, it's going to be this maze of going through the time of the Vietnam War. I think that's going to be really neat. I want to talk a little bit about what we got going on here in Medina. And we kind of did this triad, we're going to call it, where we're doing our history, and it's going to be based on the history of Medina County and the 33 men from the county that lost their lives. And then we're doing the healing, bringing the Vietnam Wall here in June, and then a welcome home and a passing of the torch is going to be down in Wadsworth in August. And you are nice enough to let us open up this history project. We're going to have our panels with yours of the 33 men that lost their lives at the IX Center. And you're right, the guys at the IX Center have been great as far as helping us put this together and everything, but it should be interesting. Why do you think it's important? Because a lot of people ask me, so, the history of the Vietnam War, the history of the veterans that came home, and that time period, but why do you think it's important 50 years later to have a commemoration like this?
Well, was a strange time, getting out of Vietnam and what was happening in society, and the community had really turned against the Vietnam War for a lot of different reasons, but they focused that energy on the Vietnam vets. And so a lot of vets, they went on with their lives, but they felt that burden they gave their all for Vietnam, fighting in the jungles, and just horrific conditions that you lived through, and then you came home, and there was no gratitude, no support, and you lived with that. So I think it's a real opportunity for the community, because now people look differently at what the Vietnam vets did than they did 50 years ago, and they're much more supportive of the commitments we made. So this is one way to honor that commitment and to show the respect that I think the Vietnam vets are due.
So I mean, you look at what veterans have coming home today, and it's, you know, a huge difference than 50 years ago. And that's a good thing. And a lot of that, you know, I mean, I personally said that, you know, the Vietnam veterans changed the way we treat our veterans and the way we look at war. I mean, and it took you guys 20, 30, 40, still 50 years to do that. Do you think if there wasn't a war going on today that we would be re-looking at how we treated the Vietnam veterans?
Probably not. I think it's interesting because, you know, with Desert Storm, for instance, and I think it really started hitting home with Desert Storm because things started to change for the soldiers coming back, and Desert Storm was so successful, and the veteran services and a variety of other things in the way people looked at our veterans started to change. Well, the Desert Storm veterans, a lot of them that I've talked to, you know, said, you know, if it wasn't for the Vietnam vets, we wouldn't have a lot of the things that we have today. So I'm thankful we could help contribute to change.
Right. And I think, I mean, I guess that was my point, is I think there's a lot of it that, you know, we're going, hey, you know, from a veteran standpoint today, you guys got us this. It's time we recognize your service because the country failed to do that in so many aspects 50 years ago. So I think it's important to remind people of that. What's going to happen at the IX Center? What's your, you know, we talked a little bit about the maze and stuff you got going on. How many panels or pictures are in that maze?
Well, we've got 184 panels, excuse me. Each panel will have anywhere from 2 to 8 or 10 pictures on a panel. So we'll have probably close to 1,500 pictures depicting Vietnam. A lot of the pictures are from veterans or from veteran families, and we'll have that story going from the early days to the fall of Saigon. And then there's research on the internet and various other sources that will intertwine with this whole flow as we go through these cubicle paths that depict what happened in Vietnam.
So, and I know we got an example of one of the panels that you're going to have at the IX Center. And then we also got an example of what we're using for our history project, which is going to be part of your project there at the IX Center. We're going to unfold it at the IX Center, and then we're going to have a ceremony back here on March 29th. But it's going to consist of 35 panels. And I know we got one of the panels. We had the first airman that was killed in Vietnam from Medina County. And basically what we're trying to do is correlate the history of that man's death to what happened right here at home on that same day. And I guess, you know, when we sat down and we started this project, we said, well, what are we trying to do? And the goal of the history project for us was to drive home that while you're reading the newspaper and the headlines, drinking your cup of coffee in the morning, there's someone giving their life somewhere else in the world for your freedoms. So we're trying to bring that real simple history of hometown, Medina County, and what's going on in your life that day to the day that that gentleman died. And we got 33, we're going to show them in unison, and I want to thank you for letting us bring them out at the IX Center. We're hoping to share these with the community throughout the year. So, you know, when we bring the wall here, we're hoping to have them on the wall in June, and we're hoping that we get an impact. Right now, I think it's going to be nice. I think people will enjoy it. There's still some of the families around the county from those men that we're hoping they'll come out, and we're trying to get in contact with some of them so that they know what we're going on. I think it's important that we remember our Vietnam veterans, though, and thank them for, you know, the service that they did to our country. And you know, and if they taught the country one thing, it's to separate the war from the men and women that fight it. I mean, we're just doing our job. And, you know, you may not like the war, but you can't blame it on the people that are fighting it. You know, I mean, they're just out there trying to defend, you know, what we got going on here. What's, I know you're going to have some fundraisers going on at the IX Center as always. What are you trying to raise the money for out there?
Well, any donations made, excuse me, any donations made at the IX Center, 100% of those funds will go to the DAV, who are buying a van for the Greater Cleveland Fisher House. That van will be used to transport veteran families from the Fisher House to Wade Park, VA, or to Cleveland Clinic, Metro, or University Hospital. So that's the key and fundraiser we're doing. And the rest of it is with VVA and the other organizations, veteran services that'll be there, is just to support our veterans, answer any questions they might have. We'll have guides that'll take people through the display, and if they have questions, help try to answer those questions. Especially probably a lot of young people that it'll be new for them.
I think it'll be a learning process. I mean,
Absolutely.
it'll be it's good for some guys. They're going to look at that and go, "Wow, I remember that." And there's going to be a lot of emotion for the ones that were over there. And I think for a lot of people, they're going to learn that, I mean, a lot of people go, "Well, Vietnam, okay, it was the '60s," but I mean, for the history of it, I mean, it started much before the '60s with the French and all that. I know in years past the money went to the Fisher House. This year it's going for the van for the Fisher House. Tell us a little bit about the Fisher House. I think they got all the money to build the home right now, so we're just waiting for construction, and so that's why we're reaching out and trying to raise money for the van. So tell our viewers a little bit about the Fisher House and what they do.
Well, the Fisher House, actually, we started raising money for the Fisher House to build one facility, and the Fisher House National came in about 2 years ago, and they looked at the VA the VA hospital and realized that one Fisher House wasn't going to be enough. Well, they eventually decided that they would contribute the additional money to build a second Fisher House. So we're actually going to be building two Fisher Houses. It'll be close to the proximity of the VA hospital, and each one will hold about 19 families. Right now, the VA puts up about 30 to 40 families every week for families coming in from out of town. There's so many areas of expertise at the VA hospital that it's amazing, and plus the ability to draw on the medical community within the downtown Cleveland area is phenomenal in this medical support we get from the VA hospital. But the Fisher House will be, once it's built, it'll be turned over to the VA, local VA hospital, for them to manage and run. Right now, it's just going through the final stages of getting all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. We're hoping for groundbreaking in the early spring next year, so I can't wait until that comes about.
Well, for those who don't know, the Fisher House is like a Ronald McDonald House for the VA and for the military. A lot of people don't realize that the Wade Park Hospital down there brings in a lot of people from out of town, because when the VA created these centers of excellence, I think they're calling them, the VA in Cleveland has a very unique specialty. So they bring in people from other hospitals and they got to stay there, and there's nowhere to stay. You can imagine, for someone that's in the service, no matter what their rank is, or even a veteran, you're coming into Cleveland, you got a family member coming in, it's very expensive to try to stay in downtown Cleveland. To rent a car and try to stay out in the suburbs somewhere at a cheaper hotel, it can get quite costly. So the Fisher House picks up those costs, and they are beautiful. I've been through the one in Dayton that was built a few years ago. They are beautiful homes. They're a community home. One kitchen, everybody works together as far as living there. But truly, if you got a loved one that's recovering in the hospital, it's a good place to be. Everybody gets to connect and talk, and there's a lot of, I guess, counseling going on that isn't really counseling, but just being there with other people that are in the same situation sometimes helps a lot. So that's great. The van is going to try to move people back and forth from the Fisher House to the hospital and transit people to DAV. We know they do a lot of great things for our disabled American veterans, and so the van is a much needed entity. Anything you want to finish up with to let our fans know? We talked about the IX Center, we talked about what's going on out there, but we didn't mention what is really going on at the IX Center that we're part of out there. And I know you want to do that, so they know what event to come to.
Well, thank you. Yes, it's the Piston Autorama Show. It's March 18, 19, and 20th, which is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The Piston Autorama Show is the largest show that the IX Center does. It has anything and everything that has a piston in it, from airplanes to cars to motorcycles, boats, tractors. It's an amazing show. As you can imagine, a lot of the people that build these antique cars and do those things are very, very supportive of the veterans. So we get a lot of support from the people that attend the show and the people that enter the show there. And it's just a great time to come out and see what's going on.
And if you want to come through and see the cars that you used to own and what they're worth today and cry a little bit, there's a lot of, they got some cool cars. It's kind of like an Ram on steroids. I mean, they got everything from race cars, like you said, race boats. The military section is very impressive too, and there's a huge military display from everything from airplanes to Jeeps to trucks to, you know, you name it. What do you got? Guest speakers, you got some ceremonies and everything like that. You want to talk a little bit about what's going to actually happen on each day?
We've got 2 guest speakers coming in. The first guest speaker is Jimmy Spencer. He's a command sergeant major with the U.S. Army, retired, and he's a consultant with the Department of Defense, and will be here, be on the main stage Saturday at 3 o'clock to welcome home the veterans and for the commemoration of the veterans, and to hand out the pins that we have that are for the Vietnam veterans, a special pin. Those pins are being handed out. They're free, and his main objective is really to thank the veterans, the Vietnam vets. So we're real excited to have him. We have Dave Taylor that's going to also talk, and he's going to talk about what it meant for an infantryman in Vietnam and
Dave authored a book about the Marical division, his division over there, and if nobody's ever read it, it is a great book. It's a lot of reading, but it's very detailed. I know I've read most of it. So, you know, I think he's going to have some of the books there too, if somebody wants to pick one of those up. And
we're going to have, we got Sergeant Hack who's going to be there, and he'll be handing out free books on his experiences in Vietnam. And so he'll have over 5,000 books there to hand out. And then David S. Taylor's large book that he did in detail about the Vietnams with the Marical, that he'll be there, and they'll both be doing book signings. We've got Rolling Thunder, who will be doing a missing man table on the main stage. So we're excited about that. And it's a really an experiencing ceremony.
Opening ceremony's Friday. Events all day Saturday.
Right.
Closing ceremony on Sunday.
Yes.
Okay. Discounts for veterans?
Discounts, there's a $5 discount for veterans with any type of military ID, and you know, we look forward to the veterans to coming out and supporting this event. The other thing we have is on Saturday we'll have the veterans. We do a parade to the main stage, you know, there we'll have anywhere from 50 to 100 veterans marching from the main entrance to the main stage as we start our events there. We also have the Guitars for Vets out of the VA hospital, where they teach and work with veterans on learning guitars, and they also play music, and they'll be there on the main stage for over an hour, hour and a half, playing different songs depicting the era of the Vietnam vets.
Again, I want to thank you for having our panels out there at the IX Center and starting this. I want to remind everybody of some dates coming up this year in 2016. It is Medina County's 50th commemoration of the Vietnam War also. March 29th, we're going to have a ceremony out at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial on 210 Northland Drive. And then we are going to show our history project at the Eagles here in Brunswick that afternoon or that evening. We're hoping to host some kind of small venue so everybody gets to see all the panels for the first time. June, we're hosting the Moving Wall in the city of Medina. It is going to be at the high school over one of the weekends. It's going to be a huge event. We'll have the history project there again. We're expecting thousands of people to come out to that. So if you've never had an opportunity to go to Washington and see the wall, or even if you have and you've never seen one of the smaller walls, come out and enjoy some of the festivities and commemorate our Vietnam veterans and reflect a little bit on what we lost, you know, more than 50,000 servicemen and women during the Vietnam War. And lastly, we're hoping for a big party in August, a welcome home to our Vietnam veterans and kind of an assumption of the duty for our newer generation of veterans. And that's going to be the final thing that we do for the 50th commemoration here in Medina County. So again, I want to thank you, Jack, for coming out. I always ask everybody that came on the show, if you had it to do all over again, would you do it any different?
No, I wouldn't. I think my experiences in Vietnam and the camaraderie and the friendships I've developed, I wouldn't give that up for nothing.
Thank you for your service, all right? We'll see you next month on Salute to Service.
I just want to say one thing. You'll be able to see our booth at the IX Center because we're going to have a 13-foot TV over the booth. So as you come in, you'll be able to see it from any place within the show. We're looking to have a couple of military vehicles within our booth area, plus there's all the vintage military vehicles that are going to be there. And we hope to have a Huey helicopter there. We're on the final stages of that. So come out, join us. We look forward to it.
We'll see you at the IX Center.
When you do something online, make sure you won't regret it. Protect yourself before it happens.
When you post something online, it is there forever. That's a long time. Even if you delete something, it is still there, somewhere.
If you post something embarrassing, it could affect your life and your job. Also, don't trust everyone you meet online. It could be a 40-year-old saying that they're 15.
Make sure not to share your personal information like your name. That could possibly put you and your family in danger. Remember, once you hit send, there is no going back.
Be safe. A message from Girl Scout Troop 90073, Brunswick, Ohio.
Hey, Hard, what's this?
That's my resignation letter.
You're resigning.
Why? Because you're constantly ignoring me. You're half as active as you used to be, and you eat stuff like this. You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit.
I forgot. I'll do better. Please, don't quit on me.
Okay, but remember, it's not what you say, it's what you do.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you.
Let's go for a walk.
Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
Hi, I'm Ed Zachary, Director and Service Officer for the Medina County Veteran Service Office. If you're a veteran or a widow of a veteran and you need assistance in filing a claim with the Department of Veterans Affairs, give us a call, 1-844-722-3800. That's 1-844-722-3800.